Frankfurt's kind of situated in the middle by like
Yeah.
Stuttgart, but I never really hung out in Frankfurt too
We're
much.
actually gonna be ready to go.
Oh, really?
Do I need this thingy?
Oh, wait a minute, you don't have him tied up? The microphone.
Like I'm sure I
Might be
can.
handy.
I might be able to figure it
Bring the
out.
microphone under your shirt, your sweatshirt, sweater. That just put behind you. Let me make sure it's turned over. Yeah, so take that and just put this behind you and kind of lean against it. And
His voice just came over well, huh?
pull the cable a bit just so that this. Okay, good.
Yeah, just put it in the back, yeah, the cable. No, it's Ward 7, right?
Yes.
Okay, now we're ready.
Okay.
See what happens.
Go for it.
Okay, in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Hello, and help me welcome Drew Sullivan, candidate for Alderman in Ward 7, right?
Correct. Yes.
Good. Drew, tell us why you're decided to run for Alderman in the city.
Well, I mean, the answer is a bit more complicated than just a quick excerpt, but part of it had to do with the 2016 election, which caused a lot of division amongst people. And me being from a military background, being active duty myself, I'm an Iraq war veteran, and growing up in a military household, unity and teamwork has always been one of the core values of all of that, including being in the military. So I decided to run so that I could attempt to start bringing the city itself back together. If you take party and throw it aside, what you're left with in the city is a community. And if we all get together as a community, then there isn't anything that we can't do as a community. So that was my core reason behind getting behind all of this. And just wanting to help make a difference to improve people's lives overall.
And you feel you have a different approach to the aldermanic control of the city's operation?
One of the key things that I'm going to try and do, which some aldermen currently do this very well, others do not do it very well, is just to listen to the people. And not everybody can be helped. You can't always abide by everything that everybody wants at all times, because when you do that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to make person A happy, but you're going to make person B very unhappy. But to make both people at least moderately happy, you can still listen to their story, listen to what they have to offer, listen to their advice, listen to their problems, and listen to how they feel or think the city should be moving to assist not only them, but the people that they associate with as a whole. So just by simply listening to the people and being involved in the community and taking all of the stories into account, I think that's what's going to help me stand apart from a lot of the candidates and the current incumbents that we have now. And with my military background, I'm just taking a very no-nonsense, direct approach. I'm not here to do it for the glory or the money or anything like that. I just want to help people. That's genuinely all I want to do.
Do you have any particular area that you see needs closer communication?
So yeah, there's a few things here. Number one is obviously the budgeting for the city. We have gotten way out of control with bonding of projects, which I'm all for spending. It's a necessary evil that has to be done. Taxing, spending, these are things that help the government continued to operate. But there gets a point in time where if you're looking at a population growth of less than 1% and a budget that keeps increasing by 15 to 20% year over year, then the spending is far outweighing the number of people that we have in the city. And I need to find out where that's all going. So we tend to bond a lot of things for big projects. If the city were to just stash away money in some sort of fund for projects like that to reduce the bond amount, I'd be okay with that. But bonding is not very good for anybody anyway, because you end up paying the bond back, but you also end up paying the interest on the bond as well. So everybody in the city is going to pay for it essentially twice.
Well, they do have some of the divisions, like the firemen and the the Public Works, do have a fund to buy their very expensive pieces of equipment.
Right.
So they do tuck some away, but it doesn't go out. I think one of the programs you might be thinking of is the bonding for the roads that they just
Yep.
that was because they had neglected it for so long.
Exactly.
That they had to do a lot at once, and that was the only, they didn't have enough money saved for any of
Yes.
that. But that's an operating fund anyway. As you know, operating expenses shouldn't be bonded.
No. And the operating expenses for the roads and infrastructure should be used at the time that they're issued
Right.
to continue an even level maintenance so that we don't run into issues like this.
Right.
There was a woman on the Ward 7 Facebook page that was brought to my attention last night. And her concern was, why do they have to tear up the road 4 or 5 times and then repave it 4 or 5 times to do bits and pieces of infrastructure and then redo the whole road itself, as opposed to just doing everything all at once? And that's definitely a question I need to find an answer for, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right.
You see a hole in a road, you don't just slap some asphalt on it and
Right.
call it good. Just redo the whole section of road for about a quarter mile and get that whole thing done. That's one less quarter mile that you have to take care of down the road. But that's only part of it. A lot of the people in Ward 7 have brought it to my attention about the paving, and it's causing a huge hassle for a lot of the people there. They're wondering why they're still doing it. So the next Board of Aldermen meeting, during the public comment section, I'm going to be asking not only the mayor, but June herself, as to why she hasn't given any information out to people about timeline or duration. And then I'm going to ask the mayor as well if he's got any information on that.
Well, how do you feel about the spending cap that we had, which has now been declared illegal because there wasn't a contingency for override? Do you think that they should have a spending cap, and then they should get legislation that puts in a override availability?
Yes, so I've spoken with quite a few of the other candidates who are running, and we are essentially all in agreement that even though the spending cap has been overridden, we're going to continue the spirit of the spending cap and honor what that was supposed to be if we're all elected, because with, I think it's 7 on the board that are in favor of the spending cap, then we can stop a lot of the bonding of everything that's going on.
Well, hopefully that will be good. That's really a financial way of running a company as well as the city. I mean, they have to take more of a business approach.
Right.
And do you see anything any other improvements that you'd like to support or are interested in, maybe even getting rid of some things?
So as far as supporting a few things, I was just down in Teensboro the other day, my wife and I, picking up some documents. And I noticed at their town hall office, there was a member of the city government that was there specifically designed to help out veterans. And I looked at the board at town hall, and I'm looking around, and I see nothing there for any sort of Veterans Affairs Office, not like the VA specifically,
Right.
but somebody who's familiar with veteran services that could help out the veterans of Nashua. I mean, I myself am a veteran, but I don't have a lot of the hardships that other veterans currently do. Some people who went to combat are a lot worse off than I am. I'm by no means perfectly normal by any stretch of the imagination. But I think just having somebody there in the building that they can approach and talk to that can maybe not so much do things for them, but point them in the right direction, or perhaps even just find them some of the answers that they're looking for any sort of assistance they may need. Another thing that I'd like to see is, while I love Main Street, it's a nice place to hang out here and there, there's an entire city around Main Street.
Right.
A whole city filled with, 87,000 people? And we spend so much money on just Main Street and that mile-and-a-half stretch of road. And it's ridiculous because there's abandoned buildings that need either upkeep, destruction, replacement, what have you, parks, sidewalks, infrastructure, that all of that money could be going to. But for whatever reason, the city likes to spend a ton of that money on that small stretch of road.
Well, that's true. They're trying to make that the center part of, and the new arts program that they're trying to get. I don't think they have enough public support for it yet, though.
No, they were supposed to raise $4 million in. I'm sorry, I have something in my eye. They were supposed to raise $4 million in public funding
Yeah.
before they could issue any more money for the Performing Arts Center,
Right.
but they never managed to do it.
Right.
So the city government went around everyone's back. Sorry, can I get some water?
Oh, I'm sorry. This wasn't used, so go
That's
ahead
fine.
and take
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, don't start up again until I say we're ready.
Okay. So he's going to be able to cut this out. So
I'm just incredibly nervous.
now there's I'll continue with that statement because we'll just go from there.
Yeah, just start that statement over though.
What was I saying?
They were talking about the $4 million and they were going
Right.
around. How they go around?
Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
So the city was supposed to raise $4 million in public funding for the Performing Arts Center, but that never happened.
Okay, just start over again.
Sorry.
Get settled in.
You need a Kleenex or anything?
I don't know what I need.
In my pocket? No.
Just don't want to rub your eyes too much. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah. Why don't you take some of this?
I can spend all that time in Baghdad and be perfectly fine. Put a TV camera on me, and I break down.
Not wrong.
Thank you.
You all set?
I hope so.
Okay. Countdown.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3.
So the city was supposed to raise the $4 million in
Right.
private funding for the Performing Arts Center, but that never happened. So instead, the city decided just to simply bond out the rest of it, which is going to spend even more money than originally projected for the entire project. And again, we're paying for it twice because it's bonded. Meanwhile, Manchester just opened up a Performing Arts Center
Right.
to compete with the one that we don't even have remotely
Ready.
anywhere near for anyone to do anything with it.
Right.
It's still the Alex Shoes building, and it's still filled with all of the stuff that was originally in there to begin with.
So the aldermen then approved that already, because that was part of the law that they set up.
Right, so they put it to a vote, and even though the majority of wards
Yeah.
voted against it, the number of votes for it was, I believe, in the majority by 51. And so
Oh.
they took that as, well, clearly the people obviously want this
So
to
they
happen.
had 8 votes for and 7 against. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And they probably had the 4, that represent all the wards, plus 4 others.
Yeah, I know, I didn't look too deeply at the vote count. I did know that there is a discrepancy, which was the 51
Yeah.
in the majority, and that the majority of wards in total voted against it. And I know Ward 7 was one of the wards who voted as a whole against the Performing Arts Center. But June Karen voted yes to go ahead and bond it anyway.
I see. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that we're doing that doesn't have the clarity, I guess you might say, of openness on how it's being done, because I don't think a lot of people know what's happening there. They're asking questions and they don't. So I mean, that's you're saying that you're going to be an alderman that responds to your people
Yes.
when they talk to you. That's going to be one of your highlights of interaction with your constituents.
Correct. I expect the people to hold me in accountability for any decisions that I make. Because any decisions are not supposed to be for my own personal opinion,
Right.
but they're supposed to be in the best interest of the ward as a whole. And as part of the Board of Aldermen, that's supposed to be in the best interest of the city
Right.
as a whole as well.
Well, there's a lot of things that have to be done. I hope you're prepared to keep a busy night as the you have a regular job and you have to do this at night. That's
Yep.
when you have the different. Do you know what committees you'd like to be on yet? Or-
I honestly haven't even looked it over
Okay.
quite yet, but I'm sure something will stick out to me.
Okay, well, good. I hope you are you're able to fit in there and get elected. I know you haven't been here long enough to know a lot of people, but I hope you have enough connections with your ward now that you can be able to get the vote in, because
Well-
that's going to be a heavy thing. The hardest thing to do is the first time you run.
Yes, which fortunately this is my second.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. So you got a little bit into it than last time.
Yeah, there was a bit of a snafu last time. I had all the petitions put together, I had all the paperwork signed, and I had given it to my friend Linda Twombly to submit to City Hall because I was going to be out of state
Oh,
during that time. And it was the very end of the filing period.
yeah.
So my wife and I ended up going out of state to North Carolina. My mother invited us down there, and I get a phone call, and they're like, oh, by the way, one of the signatures on the form that I have to write my own name in to put me on the ballot, my wife doesn't have her married name on file as the voter register card with the city. So they're like, nope, that's the wrong last name, right address, wrong last name. Got to redo it. So we drive from the Outer Banks to this weird Staples in the middle of nowhere. We get a new one printed out. She re-signs it. We overnight it back to Linda. I get a phone call the next day. Oh, by the way, if it's the last day of filing, it has to be done in person. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm in North Carolina. That's not possible right now. So I ran as a write-in. I managed to get 50 votes. So I lost by 670 something, which was a little bit to be expected as a write-in.
Oh, yeah.
But this year, definitely on the ballot.
Good.
So we'll just have to play it by ear, see how it goes,
Good
continue
luck.
meeting new people, continue asking for votes. Signs will be out here in the next week or so.
Mm-hmm.
They have been ordered. Sorry for procrastinating on that, but
Good.
they're on their way. We're going to get those going.
Okay.
And we got the Facebook page up
Just
and
get
running.
your name out there, get
Yep.
your face out there, and people will vote for you.
That is definitely the plan. I don't have a lot of experience.
Well, I think
In politics, but-
it wouldn't be. Well, I didn't have much either when I first got elected, and it's an experience. I lost my first election, the second one I got in, and it's something that I think you'll appreciate. It is satisfying, especially if you get some of your motions voted in.
Right.
That's the first thing that you feel that I really belong here now. So there's enough to be that way, and when you're elected, I hope to see you back here so that we can talk about how things are going.
Sounds
Get
good.
the insight from you and some of the other people that are being elected if they're
Yeah,
new.
hopefully my public speaking skills will have improved by then. But
Well, we hope so.
yeah, so I said I may not know a whole lot about politics, but what I do know is I know how to listen, I know how to lead, and I know how to inspire. So I think with those three things, in addition to a common sense, rational approach to how everything should be done, I think that's gonna help in the
The
long
hardest
run.
part, I think, is getting what you think out to all your constituents.
Yep.
And if we can help you out in any way, that's what the reason for this program is, to get people to know what's happening out there in our community, city or state, whatever, even the national. We'll have the national people on this show also, the ones who are running for the federal Senate or the House of Representatives. So good luck,
Thank you
and
very
we'll
much.
be talking to you again. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Have a good night.
Right.